The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Monday, the most important day of the week, and it is October 21st. And today is National Apple Pie Day.
Shout out to America.
Yeah. Shout out to McDonald's. It's also
it's the only thing that ever works. The only dessert that ever works over there.
Right.
Shout out to ice cream, vanilla ice cream.
I heard Trump fixed the ice cream machine while he was there too, but nonetheless, it's also Back to the Future Day, you guys.
I don't know if that ice cream it was not chocolate ice cream from what I heard. It was soft serve though.
It's Back to the Future Day, Rico.
Hey man, I gotta gas up the DeLorean, hit 88 miles an hour, and go back when things were normal.
Back to when Kamala was a middle class woman.
Back to when things were normal.
Speaking of which, it's also National Witch Hazel Day.
Okay, all right. Little antiseptic action.
Yep. National Reptile Awareness Day for all the vrills out there.
Shout out to
For all you snake ass bitches out there.
Yeah, the Anunnaki, these shapeshifters out there, and they're running the world. You know what I'm saying?
And you know, it is getting to be that season. It's also National Pumpkin Cheesecake Day. I don't know if that sounds good. I'm confused. I'm so confused on that. But nonetheless, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above or down below on your screen to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And yes, we have coming up first. That's right. It is the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, the man who has been out on the East Coast, but now he is back on the West Coast doing the best things, dope dadding and things like that. It is none other than Rico Lamitte.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that, bro. You got some applause.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's all good. Appreciate that. It's good to be back in sunny California and already talking about politics once again. And in any normal presidential election cycle, the effect from celebrity endorsements is negligible at best. Usually, celebrity endorsements are rolled out strategically in coordination with whatever candidate's outreach team in an effort to sway voters that are undecided or possibly steal some less sophisticated voters that might just be down to do whatever their favorite famous person tells them is right. But this year's number of undecided or folks turned off by either party's choice of candidate is at an all-time high. So will Taylor Swift's efforts to activate her countless hordes of Swifties nationwide to show up for Kamala Harris pay off? What about the legion of butt-sniffing Aiden Ross incel acolytes? Will Trump's willingness to sit down for an off-the-cuff conversation with this popular YouTuber get a slew of young white males off the couch and into the voting booth? Who knows? It's all pandering in the grand scheme of things, and it's also the American way. But what happens when a certain celebrity's got a long resume of political activism and also represents a growing block of voters that are more focused on their initiatives moving forward than whatever candidates put out in front of them. Willie Nelson is the guy I'm talking about. The red-headed strangers had run-ins with the law over the years, the first being back in 1974 in Dallas, Texas, where he was arrested for marijuana-related offenses. Nelson found himself in legal trouble again in 2006, when he, along with several others on his tour bus, including his sister, Bobby Nelson, and their driver, was arrested after police uncovered a substantial amount of marijuana and hallucinogenic mushrooms. Then again in 2010, TMZ reported yet another incident in which Nelson was apprehended for marijuana possession after authorities discovered weed on his tour bus at a border checkpoint. Nelson has always used his misfortunes to push for legalization, and over the years, he's grown closer with the Democrats pushing forward on the issue. And just last week, he showed up in support of Dallas, Texas's ballot measure, Proposition R, aiming to decriminalize small amounts of cannabis and drafted by Democrats in deep red Texas. And then this week, he's stepped up his game on the federal level to do what he can to convince the unconvinced that Kamala Harris is the right person for the job. Sure, Willie. According to Kelly Coffee Barons at The Blast, Nelson's set to host a virtual cannabis reform event this Thursday, October 24th, to support Vice President Harris and her Democratic running partner, Tim Walz. The Zoom call is slated to feature other pro-pot celebrities like Whoopi Goldberg and Margot Price, but also politicians like Colorado Governor Jared Polis and Representative Brittany Peterson. The Nelson's reps say that the call will focus on the importance of cannabis reform in the United States. Nelson, a longtime legalization advocate, emphasizes that the support for leaders like Harris is crucial to ending federal prohibition and addressing the harm done to communities of color. His endorsement is expected to encourage support for the initiative. I personally believe anybody still claiming to be undecided at this point either not voting at all or just trolling everybody else. I really don't think that we've ever had two more different choices to run the country, and ain't nothing any celebrity says at this point is going to make me change my mind, but maybe I am in the minority. What do you guys think? Will a virtual session with Willie Nelson persuade the countless self-prescribed, non-committed pro-cannabis voters that it is time to turn the page on former snake watcher in chief Donald Trump and roll the dice with their future with Harris and Walz? Are there any celebrities out there with the riz to make you change your mind on such a personal thing like voting for president? I don't know. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High 9 News, and if the answer to that last question is yes, I've got more questions for you, man. What do y'all think?
I mean, honestly, what I think is that you just went out and bought yourself like the Willie Nelson greatest hits and all. You just contributing to Willie Nelson now since he came out in favor of Kamala, aren't you, Rico? You love it. I mean, obviously cannabis is a big issue, but this is the problem with politics. Cannabis becomes the issue to get all the undecided people back on the Democrats train, because we know that that's what they're going to use to get us off our ass to vote for them. But it's not going to work. It's not going to work this time because cannabis isn't the biggest issue facing the voters this year, right? It's way more. It's way deeper. There's a lot of things that people think are disgusting by the Biden and Harris administration, namely the immigration issue and also all the wars that we're fighting on every front where we have no money to actually fix what's wrong with our country. So I don't know if Willie's going to do it this time for the Dems, but good try, Willie.
Fair enough. I mean, I'll tell you this much. I mean, Willie Nelson's been in the news. I guess he was in the news on Friday. He's in the news today. He's obviously trying to do some type of push, but I'll tell you what, he must have dementia if he is trying to back Kamala Harris, because that is just crazy wackadoodle to me. And I don't think that an endorsement from Willie Nelson is going to push the needle anywhere for Kamala Harris.
I don't think so either. But he has been riding with the Democrats for quite some time.
I think a lot of this. I think this might be the male version of a Taylor Swift revolt.
Oh boy.
Just saying.
I mean, if we talk about how many times Willie's been arrested, like, isn't he just kind of a sitting duck? Like, you pull the car over, there's Willie Nelson in there. You're like, all right, let's
exactly. It's probable cause. Yeah, it's probable cause. You pull over a Willie Nelson tour bus. Yeah.
Driving while Willie.
That's a cheat code. If you're an elderly white male with longer hair, just say you're Willie Nelson, and you won't get in trouble, right?
Only if your bandana.
It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like he does, in fact, get in trouble. Samon, you're on mute, bud.
Damn, that took the wind out of the sails on that joke. But I was going to say Rico's dream is just to wake up as Willie Nelson one day so he stops getting fucked with.
I'm good on that.
Man. What, Yarrow, you have any thoughts on this? Yarrow, Willie Nelson coming out endorsing Kamala Harris and campaigning for her, doing this charity concert or whatever.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to start the week off by totally agreeing with everything everybody said. It doesn't move the needle. He's not going to swing the swing voter. Willie being Willie and Willie endorsing a Democrat and Willie endorsing Harris after her recent statements around cannabis, and my continued belief that that cannabis is not that there's not a single issue voter out there that is going to have cannabis be the reason they vote one way or the other for the most part. I just don't think it does anything. And I don't think, I think within cannabis circles, Willie is incredibly relevant. Mm-hmm. And I think outside of cannabis circles, unless you're over a certain age, not so relevant. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, because I think the body of artistic work that he's contributed is substantial. But I don't think anybody is as they've got their little mail-in ballot, they're going all right,
what would Willie do?
Where's Willie on the? Yeah, what would Willie do? Free Willie for sure, but not what would Willie do.
All right, so we all agree that the Willie's not going to penetrate deep enough for this to matter to this election, right? I tried to hold that joke back. I really just kept myself from doing it multiple times, but it just kept appearing.
I don't know. Does he have the size of Arnold Palmer?
What do we think about the people that would vote naturally the opposite way that Willie Nelson is trying to convince them to vote? What do we think about them? Is he marginalizing those people based on his endorsement?
I think he's marginalizing his fan base right now.
I don't think so. I think they expect him to do whatever he's going to do, to be highly independent. And again, I don't think this. No. I don't think this changes any outcomes.
At all.
Well, the only thing that's going to change the outcome is how many people want to go to Willie Nelson concerts or buy Willie Nelson merchandise in the future.
I disagree. I disagree. People don't care.
People do care.
I feel like people in the moment. How many Republicans are drinking Bud Light again now? A ton of them.
None of them.
Let's keep it a buck.
No one's drinking Bud Light, bro. No one's drinking Bud Light, bro. No one's drinking Bud Light. That's not true.
The flash in the pan is
Modelo is the #1 beer in America, bro. No one is drinking Bud Light.
People are drinking Bud Light. I think they're more committed to their inebriation than they were to their discrimination, and they don't really back to business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think people are just going to act like they're upset right now. They're going to forget about it next week, and they'll be right back to listening to it. Mm-hmm. I guarantee, all the people who made a big hubbub about Taylor Swift, they don't really care. They're just saying that for the cameras. They're saying that for the gram, and they'll get back to listening to Taylor Swift and whatever songs that she makes. Because I have no idea about any of her music.
Oh no, I will say Willie Nelson should have just stuck to his endorsement of the decriminalization vote in Dallas and just left it at that.
He's going to do what he's going to do, and these politicians are going to do what they do, keep on thinking that it's going to move the needle. But I think people, to what Saman's saying, to what Yarrow said as well, people don't give a shit about that anymore. Are you actually going to sign something into law that is going to push us forward? If not, whatever, I'll show up on a Zoom to smoke weed with Willie Nelson to say I did it and still vote for whoever I feel is the best candidate. I do not think
it's the epitome of cultural exploitation. This is ganja exploitation. Okay, this is what era we're in. Where all these people are clamoring. It's like, who can we help who can we get to help our messaging, to help whatever. It's like we need like the one American cannabis bona fide person to help that, and they pick like Willie Nelson of all people. It's like,
well,
dude.
Yeah, and they were trying to clamor to the black and brown vote, so this is a huge miss.
Yes. Yep. And yeah.
Whoever's advising Kamala Harris.
Hey man, I know more Willie Nelson songs than Taylor Swift. Put it that way.
Fair enough.
You're aging yourself right now.
On that, before we go down that rabbit hole, we're going to go to a commercial and we're going to be right back.
Oh man, that was weird. Hey, you America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Samon Rosani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California, with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
Not a safe space. I am going to weaponize that information
we're back.
immediately.
We're back. We're back.
We are back, y'all. And up next, y'all know who it is. It's the highest Republican in every room. And then known for smoking the best weed in the world. And then also, his favorite drink, apparently, is an Arnold Palmer. Coming to the stage, none other than Jason Beck.
That is definitely not my favorite drink, Rico, but... You know, whatever, you guys.
Jason's favorite drink is Lagavulin.
Ooh, love me some Lagavulin. Love me some Lagavulin. But let me tell you something. What else I love? All right, I love this news, you guys. All right, I have a good story for you guys today. Finally some good news. And the governor did some good things here in California, because the governor halts unfair double taxation of California cannabis, you guys. That's right. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a Senate Bill 1059 into law on September 28, 2024, halting the double taxation that has plagued the state's cannabis industry since adult use legalization. In a quote, "This bill will prohibit a city or county from including in the definition of gross receipts for purposes of any local tax or fee on a licensed cannabis retailer the amount of any cannabis excise tax imposed under the cannabis tax law or any sales and use taxes." California requires that the cannabis retailers collect a 15% excise tax on the gross receipts of the retail sale, and California's definition of gross receipts also includes other ancillary charges like delivery charges or any local tax that is charged. Cities like Los Angeles have required that retailers include the 15% excise tax collected from customers as part of the gross receipts from the purpose of their local cannabis tax. And this has resulted in a bizarre situation where the retailer has had to pay the state 15% of the city tax they collect from customers, but then turn around and pay the city 15% of the tax they've collected for the state, which already includes the city tax, forcing a situation of double taxation. This has created a further catch-22 where the state has told businesses that they are to be treated as being first in line for tax collection purposes. While the cities have started that, they are also to be treated as first in line for many retailers. This has meant that they are out of compliance with either one government agency or the other, risking fines and penalties. The state has now stepped in and told the cities they must take a secondary position, and most states except California do not include a gross receipts any taxes with a cannabis business collects. Rather, these states take the sales price of the cannabis products and services such as delivery and calculate all taxes, including sales tax, excise tax, even municipal tax, off of this base price. Remitting the taxes they collect to the various agencies. This means all taxes are at the same level. No tax is never calculated on any other tax, you guys. California and some other states are still charging its retailers tax on tax, and this is called tax stacking. California requires retailers to pay the 15% excise tax on the city tax they collect, and they also require that retailers calculate sales tax on both the excise tax and the city tax they collect, essentially tax on tax on tax. This creates an unfair tax burden on cannabis retailers and the consumers they serve. It's an excellent decision to clarify the priority of excise tax over city tax and to prevent double taxation. However, California needs to take further steps to eliminate tax on tax stacking that continues to occur, you guys. Well, I will say this is a great step in the right direction, because I've been saying this since the beginning, is you can't tax a tax, and California's been making all of us tax on tax on tax, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to tax about that.
Are we taxed?
I hate it. I mean, it's pretty awful.
6th biggest economy in the world, and this is what they have to do to get money. It's like, this is crazy. This is the most bizarre way to run, the largest economy in the United States as a state, and with the biggest GDP, bigger than so many countries around the world. It's ridiculous. This is everyone's problem with the government scope in not just California, but anywhere. It's like, you have all the opportunity to actually use the money to do good stuff, but look at how people in LA and people in San Francisco are still living. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. And I think it's why everyone's so disenfranchised with California. And so many people have been on the mass exodus of California, especially companies, especially big corporations that bring in tons of income that the state then taxes. So,
I mean, I'm just glad to see some kind of relief. I mean, I just want to see all the tax line itemed on everyone's receipt, so they can see where their tax money is going. Just like when you go to a gas station, they have the stickers at the pumps that's like, hey, these are all the taxes that you're paying into, all individualized and whatnot. And and based off of your subtotal, not in essence baked into the price of the goods. I think that's just crazy to me.
Let me make that partisan, but also let me make that clear. So I think we need to do that on a state level. I also think we need to do that on a national level. New York and California get the piñata treatment, but the truth is they have oversized financial contributions to the rest of the other states. And there should be a little respect put on those names, because they are economic powerhouses. The other thing is, to your point, when they collect all these taxes, the cannabis taxes are not spent back in the areas that those cannabis taxes are gathered from. And so we talk to a lot of local police departments about the loss prevention issues and the dispensaries and the manufacturing facilities that are being targeted. And there are arguably concentrations of cannabis businesses in certain parts of California, and those concentrations of cannabis businesses are not getting a concentration of the tax money being spent to make sure that there's staffing to be able to keep those businesses safe and to have quick response and public service safety officers being able to quickly respond to theft. And so I talked to the police chief in Santa Rosa, and he's like, yeah, they take a lot of taxes out of this town. We don't know how much of that gets spent back here. And so it makes a lot of sense, Jason. I completely agree. Like, when I go to a restaurant, I get to see excise tax, cleaning tax, here's your gratuity. I get to see where the money went. And with these taxes, not seeing where the money went, it's bad enough that we are taxed or overtaxed or taxed on tax. But to add to that, the lack of transparency, I think is really unfair.
Well, and depending on at the retail level, depending on your POS, you can have it itemized tax lines. But like, we're also not acknowledging this isn't just the retailer, right? Like distro in LA, we pay 2% on gross for that. Then we kick it down. They're kicking another 2% gross at the retail level. They're literally taking everybody's ass at every level of the game, which is insane. 2% on gross is ridiculous when you're looking at gross receipts like $750,000 a month, something like that. Like, that's a lot of fucking money. And it all goes into the general fund, which is what? Police, politicians, and, somebody
special interest.
And not only
I think you're asking for all this transparency, Jason. That is antithetical to what government does, right? So
no, it's not.
it's not antithetical to what government does. It's what it's antithetical to how we allow them to treat us, right, Rico? Because that's the difference. Yep. We don't live
Amen to that.
You don't live in an authoritarian.
I would love itemized taxes and to see where those dollars go to, but we know there's always going to be some opaqueness there, and we're never going to get.
Told us there was a little opaqueness, but it also told us how not to fuck it up for ourselves, and guess what? We're fucking it up for ourselves.
And how can we advocate for change and allocation of resources if we don't understand how they're currently being allocated? It's just another example of keeping the populace underinformed so that they can be less agitators. And so it's just not fair. I think this is one of like the few bipartisan issues we can all kumbaya around. We deserve to know where the money is being spent.
Yep.
Okay, but one of the main issues here is also cannabis is becoming gasoline, and we're going to get the taxes, like the crazy tax structure laws that they're creating so that they can boost the government spending in the directions that we don't want it to go. Cannabis is going to be the next gasoline tax, right? It's like we're facing a new gasoline tax here in California coming up, for a vote. And if they approve it, then there's going to be a 50 cent.
They're definitely going to approve that gasoline tax.
Cents per gallon. We're already paying 6x what the normal person in this country is paying for gas.
They're saying it's going to increase gas prices by over 67 cents a gallon. And there's no reason for us to be doing this. This is a Gavin appointed board that has no basic oversight.
Mark my words, cannabis is the new redheaded stepchild. As soon as we're bitching too much about gas, guess what? They're going to tax the other gas. And that hurts worse.
It is a gas tax. I feel you on that. Samon. But yeah, it is crazy. And you know what's crazy, Samon, about that gas tax vote is they're having that vote on that 3 days after the election. So then that way there is no accountability, and voters are just going to forget about it by the time the midterms come around. I think the one difference
is you can't do a backyard gas station or processing plant, right? At least with cannabis, there's the possibility that you can make your own. And with gasoline, we are stuck and fucked because there is no chance that I'm going to be able to make my own petrol.
Oh, man. Your taxation is theft.
Taxation is theft. Fair enough. And
say it with your chest.
Yes. Speaking of saying it with your chest, we're going to roll right into Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
Damn.
Yep. She is the founder of Kind Cannabis and of Just to Serve, a 501c3, and apparently is America's new #1 sweetheart. That's right, is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
What polls are you looking at? What polls are you looking at? Where the numbers coming from?
Real rude, Rico.
There's numbers.
I'm just saying, where the numbers coming from?
There's numbers. I'll show you on the back end.
Okay. All right.
There you go. It's called our YouTube analytics. Anyhow, let's talk about Germany, because this is actually a great story and some awesome news for access. Because in Germany, significant changes in medical marijuana reimbursement took effect last week. Over 70% of physicians can now prescribe reimbursed medical marijuana without needing prior approval from statutory health insurance companies, as reported by Business of Cannabis. This comes after partial legalization started on April 1st, allowing adults over 18 to possess up to 25 grams of cannabis and cultivate up to 3 plants at home. One key development is that medical marijuana will now be regulated similarly to common medications like ibuprofen. The new reimbursement framework proposed by the Federal Joint Committee received approval on July 18th and covers approximately 90% of the population under statutory health insurance. According to a report by Prohibition Partners, medical marijuana sales in Germany are projected to reach 420 million euros in 2024, with an estimated 1 billion by 2028. Historically, about 60% of patients have paid privately, but that figure has now shifted to 80% since legalization began. Currently, only about 2,500 to 3,000 pharmacies are dispensing medical marijuana, yet many report substantial profits, with some earning up to 50,000 euros per month. While there are concerns that this change could increase insurance rates, it promises to benefit patients who struggle with the cost of private prescriptions. A formal evaluation of the law's impact is scheduled for 2025. So I think this is awesome. If you're in Germany, your insurance can now pay for your cannabis, which is huge. So that's exciting for patients, and I'll throw it back to you guys.
Huge. I mean,
Huge.
It's one step away from the rest of the entire EU to adopt the same measures, right? Because of their, like shared health programs and like how they, obviously every country has their own program. But if you're traveling throughout the EU and you're a resident of a nation state, member state, then you can get access to the medical services in those countries, and it's super easy. Obviously, it's a completely different system that we have here, but I think that's great because it's one step away from that becoming an international thing, which is huge for the movement. As we know here, there's been big movements for veterans, for Medicaid, to cover some of these medicines for some of these specifically veterans, but I don't think that that's really moved much. So to see this is that's like, a light at the end of the tunnel.
I think it's a lighter at the end of the tunnel. And what I think is also interesting is how much this is a boom for these export countries, such as Canada, such as the ones in South America and Central America that are allowed to do this. And it is yet another example of what the lack of federal legalization is doing to the domestic industry, because we can't put our fire into their lungs compliantly yet. But the fact that it's covered, I mean, the total addressable market in any country substantially increases when this isn't something that people have to come out of pocket for 100%. I also think it just validates cannabis as medicine. But kudos to the Germans once again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is great news. This is great news. Yeah.
I liked the story when I found it this morning. I was excited.
Mm-hmm. Is Rico still with us?
No.
Rico's already dropped, huh?
He left. He messed our video up. He's gone.
He messed it up.
No, Willie gave him a quick call and he had to take it.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. You have any other final thoughts, Saman?
Easier off mute.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Europe to me just does a lot of the things right when it comes to regulating these kinds of like social things like alcohol, like any other drugs or any other kind of like pharmaceutical. It's not as like caged as it is here. Like we live in this like caged microwave kind of society where everything needs to be quick and fast, and we don't have time for stuff. And so the fact that they just live a completely different way. They're like enjoying life as opposed to just like grinding their life away like we like to do here. So I love Europe. I mean, hopefully one day we can integrate some of those really cool ways to like, live as a society and to like help our communities and to help our citizens really thrive. Other than that, Europe is facing a lot of other troubles. So I'm glad this is going down. But who knows how things are going to shape up in the EU. They have a lot of like mounting economic crises in a lot of places. I think cannabis is a big economic healer in a lot of senses. Everywhere it goes, you can just look at the United States. There's a huge economic boom that follows cannabis. And so now we're seeing it in the Midwest. Ohio just, went recreational. So now we'll maybe see some big changes happening to those communities, a lot of infusion of much needed capital, of much needed resources. So, all in all, it's good, but like, we got a long way to go to just build a better, healthier society. So hopefully that's where we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. Well. Good job, Germany. And we're going to roll into a commercial, and we're going to be right back.
I'm Cole Preston, and today I'm at Blue Island Beer Company for the premiere of my mini-documentary on legalization policy in Illinois. I've been following cannabis policy since colorful Colorado legalized it all the way back in the day, and when my home state of Illinois decided to legalize it, I just became enamored. I wondered, what would it actually look like? If If you'd like to see how Illinois fell short in achieving meaningful reform in their cannabis policy, you can watch my mini-doc now at colememo.com/minidoc.
All right, stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it, you'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And all of the articles will be up on our website. If they're not up there already, they will be up there a little bit later today. And I do want to mention that we do have a new commercial for the Cole Memo. There is a new documentary that he did with our friend over at LMC with Luke, and that is getting released today. And that is what the commercial's for. We'll be playing it starting tomorrow. But congratulations on this new documentary. You guys are definitely going to want to check this out. No, Anna's.
I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
Yeah, you guys, and we are back. Coming up, Jenny Beth is going to have to pull him off of the shelf because it is the happy angry troll from the Sebastopol area who loves to do cannabis, real estate, and every once in a while when there's money in cannabis, there is some cannabis real estate going on. That's right, it is none other than Mr. Yarrow Kubrin.
You got to stop wiggling when I get you off, Yarrow.
All that
Gonna
kicking,
drop you one day, buddy.
All that kicking, huh?
I wiggle when I get off. That is true. We are finally agreeing on something. Okay.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It is Monday and we are already rated R. Let's try to keep it. Let's try to keep it okay, you guys.
The human sandpaper is insane.
Oh, goodness. All right. Good morning. Monday morning, this is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 9 News, rounding out the last week of October. My article is from Nebraska, the Nebraska Examiner. And without further ado, medical cannabis sponsors question ethics of ongoing investigation into Nebraska petitions. Attorney General's office, while defending Secretary of State, denies wrongdoing in the way it's handled ongoing criminal and civil investigations. Allegations of witness tampering surfaced this week as the latest wrinkle in the ongoing lawsuit and an investigation against Nebraska's 2 medical cannabis petitions. The Nebraska Attorney General's office, defending Secretary of State Bob Evnen in the lawsuit, while also pursuing a separate challenge to the petition, denied any wrongdoing at a Friday hearing with Lancaster County District Judge Susan Strong. At that pretrial hearing, Judge Strong heard arguments on the allegations and ruled that no ethical violations took place. Strong officially divided the trial into 2 phases if necessary, as she outlined last week. The first trial phase will begin on October 29th, 1 week before the November election. And in that phase, attorneys for John Kuhn, a former state senator who initiated the lawsuit, and Evnen will need to prove that enough petition signatures were incorrectly accepted or tainted by fraud or malfeasance. If successful, the case would continue, likely after the election, with the trio of ballot sponsors behind Nebraskans for medical marijuana able to defend any challenged signatures. The 2 petitions would respectively regulate and legalize medical cannabis if voters approve. Sidney Hayes, an attorney for the sponsors, had asked Strong to delay the trial due to roadblocks in receiving evidence from the Attorney General's office, whose civil attorneys are defending Evnen from Kuhn's lawsuit. Kuhn is challenging his own set of at least 17,000 signatures on both petitions, while Evnen is challenging at least 49,000 signatures on each of the campaign's measures. A trial by ambush. Hayes said the sponsors were not formally notified until Tuesday of which petitions were specifically being challenged. She said evidence attorneys have also not disclosed evidence that is part of an ongoing criminal investigation central to the civil case. Criminal charges have been filed against at least one paid petition circulator and one notary, and more charges are possible. Frankly, our concern is that this will end up being trial by ambush, which is incredibly unfair to our client and undermines the right of the initiative, Hayes said. Hayes said the Attorney General's office has incredible power in its many roles. Hayes alleged that the law enforcement officials have contacted possible witnesses, causing a chilling effect on the most salient witnesses, notaries. What are they supposed to do? A Thursday filing on the ballot sponsor states, if they testify, they face criminal prosecution by the Attorney General's office for non-crimes. If they plead the fifth, they risk adverse interference against a campaign they have fought alongside for years. The sponsors alleged one civil attorney for Evnan reached out to J.C. Todd, a notary charged in Hall County, whose criminal case is ongoing. The sponsor said the state attorney general suggested Todd would benefit if he cooperated. This negates the idea that there is some sort of strict wall between the civilian and criminal division of the attorney general's office, as they've asserted in their objection to discovery, Hayes said Friday. If there was such a wall, the attorneys in each of these cases would have pierced it. Judge Strong said the allegation was one of basically witness tampering, which the Attorney General's office fiercely denied. Assistant Attorney General Jennifer Huxell said she was more than a little frustrated at Hayes' significant misrepresentations of what had occurred. She said the state never reached out to Todd, as the sponsor alleged, but did reach out to Todd's attorney, Mark Porto. If that is not an exaggeration, I've never seen one, Huxell said. This is simply not true. Deputy Solicitor General Zach Villaglanzo, a civil attorney who reached out to Todd's attorney, told Strong it was purely a planning call ahead of Todd's deposition this week. Villaglanzo said he asked generic questions about what Todd intended to do and never promised any benefits. I've never spoken to J.C. Todd, and I certainly did not make any representations on behalf of the Attorney General's office because, frankly, I don't have the authority to make any representations regarding criminal matters, Villaglanzo said. Porto had submitted a filing in Todd's defense stating that no Nebraska notary had ever been charged in a criminal matter, as Todd has been, for 24 counts of official misconduct, a misdemeanor. That case continues, with Porto asking for the charges to be dropped. Hayes says that Villaglanzo's call could give the appearance of impropriety, even if that was not the intent. Huxell said the allegations was a waste of court's time and that it was an offense to suggest Villaglanzo engaged in unlawful or unethical conduct. Huxell said she feels the Civil Bureau, which she leads, has been above board as we can, as above board as we can. Strong said she hopes that no one is interviewing potential witnesses involved in criminal investigations unless their attorney is present. Criminal investigation materials. Huxell said the Attorney General's office has 8 independent bureaus, which each carry out specific legal obligations for the state of Nebraska. In a complex case such as this, Huxell said it's not uncommon for the bureaus to overlap, particularly when there is a question of public official corruption in this case. In the case of these notaries. However, the conversation in the criminal investigations were distinct and separate from the civil lawsuit, Huxell said, arguing that materials are not being used in the case. You cannot hamstring the Attorney General's office on one side by trying to subvert discovery and coming in on the backside through our civil case, Huxell said. Strong agreed with Huxell's arguments, but reminded all attorneys that no evidence could be used at trial unless it was disclosed ahead of time. The ballot sponsors' attorneys could subpoena for information, Strong said, but added that she was not sure where that will go. Trial continued as planned. Having denied the ballot sponsors' request to access the criminal investigative materials, Strong also denied a request to delay the trial. Ann Mackin, an Austin-based attorney representing Kuhn in the lawsuit, said proceeding as planned was important because potentially invalid votes were tabulated, publicized, or certified. I would think that there would be an interest from everyone in ensuring that, Macklin said. Hayes and the ballot's sponsors' attorneys have repeatedly said such a ruling in the trial's first phase could close to the election, and either way it comes down could cause a real risk of voter confusion. The election is November 5th. Early voting, including on the cannabis petition, has already begun. Villaglanzo said if the challenges were unsuccessful, Evnen would have an obligation to alleviate any voter confusion, such as in public statements and ordering votes to be counted. There is still value to your providing a declaration about the validity and the legal sufficiency of these measures before the general election, Villagonso told Strong. Nebraskans deserve to know, one way or the other, whether the allegations are serious or not. The trial is set to begin October 29th and could last through November 1st if needed. Strong would issue her ruling shortly after. Phase 2 of the trial, if needed, would begin at a later point in this fall. So this is Nebraska. This is the judicial system being used to muck up the will of the voters. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 9 News, Monday morning. Let's hear what my other guests and pundits think and feel about what's going on in Nebraska.
Man, Nebraska, man, they got a lot of action going on with their whole voter initiative. This is insane that they got all this going on out there. Like, they just keep on trucking on. And shout out to all these activists out there that keep on pushing this and fighting for this out there. They definitely want it, and hopefully they will get it.
I mean, sounds like harassment through courts, which really sucks for these poor notaries.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but
look, Yarrow can't argue with me, and it almost made his head explode.
I explode every time I think about you, but the point is that
whoa.
The point is that there is an argument in civil law where if you threaten criminality in the use of the civil process, that's actually fraud. That's actually totally illegal. And what is being argued here is that this office, that there's not enough bifurcation between what's going on civilly and what might be going on criminally, and that the supporters of these initiatives are suggesting that the district attorney's office is playing, or I'm sorry, the attorney general's office is playing fast and loose in the way that they are running their processes in both the civil and criminal proceedings.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I hope Saman comes off mute. You are way too high this morning, Saman.
Yeah, I mean, I got some really nice SIP hash for, Nick Bradley, in the chat. Nick, I wish I could just put this in the computer and send it to you, bro. It's really calming me the fuck down. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man, look at that. Look at that.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
literally.
This is just a normal tactic, right? This is a normal, typical tactic. Like, go to the people who certify this paperwork, hem them up so that they can't certify anybody or certify any paperwork. And then the processes kind of halt, right, until those people can figure out a way. And that's just a really typical obstacle that they put out. But, places like Nebraska are still going to consider cannabis this pejorative thing, right? And they're going to use the terms pejoratively, and they're not going to really accept any other, other thought process or any other concept to be moving forward in their society, because they really want to tighten down, because they think it's better to keep cannabis out and keep it on the street in the black market, probably so they can keep prosecuting, probably black and brown people for cannabis use and sales and whatever and distribution. So it's just one of these ongoing things where you got to break the cycle. Like, the cycle has to be broken somewhere. It's young people. It's like, on one hand, the young people are just following the old guard because that's what they've been taught in those really closed off, quadranted societies. But it's like, that's how they've survived. And so to go against the grain on that's a big movement for someone to do that, especially a young person, when there's such mounting opposition against those free thoughts. Mm-hmm. So it's tough. You just gotta, but any day you catch the fish out of water, it's fresh, baby. That's all I know.
Well, I'll tell you what, all these prohibitionists out there in Nebraska, I hope they're putting just as much effort into securing their elections out there and ensuring that dead people aren't voting and illegals and, non-citizens aren't voting, as they're putting into this whole cannabis initiative trying to fight the will of the people.
Well, and that, I think, is what chaps my hide on a Monday morning, or at least this Monday morning, is that it doesn't appear to me from the outside that there is a ton of prohibitionists, that there's a prohibitionist movement. What it appears is that a former elected official, either a state senator or representative, filed this lawsuit and is using the courts to jam up the process, to create this ambiguity with voters about whether the initiative got enough support, will of the people to even be on the ballot, and to kick up dust and mud and to obscure whether this thing has a chance of even passing, if it has enough votes. And I think that that can have a chilling effect on voters' participation with supporting the initiative or their desire to see it through. And so no matter what happens with the court process, this Cohen guy achieved some of those goals by filing the lawsuit. And so I wonder, how did they come up with the 49,000 people that they say are fake? Who paid for all of that? It wasn't just grandma who thinks it's the devil's lettuce. It was moneyed interests. And to Saman's point, why are the moneyed interests putting their resources into this? What do they have to gain by the status quo? And I think that's an important part of the story.
That's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And on that, we're going to roll into our final commercial, and we're going to be right back. What's that?
We killed that one. Want to go Smoky Vanilla?
No.
Highly Educated?
Mm-mm.
Patriot Financial?
Patriot, yeah.
Are you a business that's suffering from the hyperinflation that is plaguing America today? We have the solution for you. That's right, Patriot Business Financing. Head on over to www.patriotbfc.com and apply for a loan up to $2 million. Any state, any industry, even the cannabis industry, the CBD industry, as well as the industrial hemp fiber industry. Secure up to $2 million today, and make sure that when you apply, you tell Paul you said hi from High at 9.
And we're back.
Thank you.
And we're back, you guys.
Use your big words.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of big words, we're going to roll right into Mr. Samon Razani. He's a formulations expert who specializes in helping women over 50 say hello again. That's right. It is none other than Mr. Samon Razani.
Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I'm joining you just to show off this special merch from High at 9 News. You can find your amazing Adidas polos on www.highat9news.com. Don't forget to check it out.
We put the link in the description, Saman, in the description of this video where they can go to get it, because I'm not sure if it's linked up to the website or not yet.
Yeah, and if you don't know how to get to the description of the video, we can send you a tutorial on how to find that. But every video has a lot of great information. Keep watching, keep tuning in. We love to see you. We love all the commentary. We love all our fantastic fans. Today, especially, I can't take my eyes off the chat. Amazing. I have a story from our friends at MJ Biz Daily today about the U.S. hemp business. U.S. Hemp Authority offers certification program for intoxicating products. Absent federal regulations for the $28.4 billion market for goods containing intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoids, and in an era where states are imposing increasingly tough restrictions or outright bans on hemp-derived THC, a major hemp organization has created a certification program for such products. The U.S. Hemp Authority, a Kentucky-based third-party certification body for hemp and CBD products, has launched what it calls the Adult Use Hemp Product Certification Program. Excuse me one second. The Adult Use Program is designed for manufacturers or sellers of products with Delta-8 THC or other hemp-derived cannabinoids, the organization said in a Thursday news release. An industry of good actors. We intend to ensure the hemp industry regulates itself to increase safety and stability, and to demonstrate to legislators and regulators that the industry is made up of primarily good actors trying to bring quality products to consumers. U.S. Hemp Authority President Chris Fontes said in a statement. In order for a product to qualify for U.S. Hemp Authority certification, it must do the following: comply with ASTM product labeling, use child-resistant packaging, be restricted to adults 21 and older, contain only Delta-8 or Delta-9 THC, and be free of novel cannabinoids such as THCO, THCP, Delta-10 THC, and HHC, which are just, synthesized, cannabinoids made through a CBD base product. So CBD isolate, they can convert to THCO, THCP, Delta 10, and HHC. HHC is pretty complex and very dangerous, but that's a good sign. They also must obey purity standards, including disclosing chemicals or compounds used during the conversion process, which is really good. Follow the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's current good manufacturing practices, CGMP. Undergo third-party purity and potency testing at a laboratory accredited by the International Organization for Standardization, ISO. Intoxicating hemp market persists despite bans. Products containing intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoids have proliferated across the country since the 2018 Farm Bill was signed into law. The Farm Bill clarified that cannabis containing 0.3% THC or less is federally legal hemp, though a loophole allowed for the manufacture and sale of products with much more hemp-derived THC. Marijuana interests say that intoxicating hemp-derived products, which are not subject to the same taxation or regulatory requirements, enjoy an unfair advantage. And authorities across the country have claimed that some unscrupulous businesses are selling such products to minors. So, states with regulated marijuana programs have been acting to try to protect their programs by either restricting such products or banning them entirely. The most notable state to take action is California, which recently passed emergency regulations prohibiting hemp products with any detectable level of THC sold outside the state's regulated marijuana market. It's an open question whether intoxicating hemp products will survive the next iteration of the Farm Bill amid calls to close the so-called loophole. Hemp product manufacturers interested in the U.S. Hemp Authority's adult use hemp product certification program may apply here, and there's a link in the story, and you can check it out if you're one of these so-called companies. And I'm going to start off by saying kudos to the organization who's trying to certify, who's trying to kind of keep this thing afloat and buoy their efforts, because ultimately, everything's just on a diminishing order of magnitude here in every industry, especially in California. So, you got to say kudos to the guys who are trying to certify, who are making it legit, not just the guys that are out there making the money, but the guys who are trying to protect those guys. So, big shout out to them, Chris Fontes, their president, for promoting this program, putting the bullseye on their back and saying, hey, we're going to try to regulate this and try to reach across the aisle and talk to these other regulators in these other states that are banning them and see what we can do. I think that ultimately, I've been saying this for, forever, the bifurcation, Yara used my word today, the separation of the two sides, it's the problem. That's the issue. It's not anything else. It's all cannabis. It all deserves to be regulated the same. And I think that forcing states to undergo these like horrible situations where they have, a license, a swath of licensees who sue them because they feel that the process is unfair. It's the same as what's happening now. And so you're never going to get away from the scrutiny if you're a regulator or if you're, a bureaucrat. You have to actually try to make sense of this. And common sense is the one thing that the government we know does not have. They need to get more common sense about this situation because there's a lot of money that's being missed. And I think that's the thesis, that it's a lot of money being missed.
And Samon, I read the regulations. They're not that they're not that erroneous, and they're not that difficult to do, in my opinion. What do you think?
That list is super. I mean, half of those things are already being done, right? But it's just you have to have congruency, and you have to have a bunch of stakeholders in that process to be like, holding the signs and picketing and saying, hey, we need this to make more sense. Otherwise, we're just we're doing like the self-regulating portion of this, which is great and all, but it needs, there needs to be a little more, there needs to be a little more definition, a little less confusion on what's happening.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect example of if industry doesn't get its shit together, government will come in to get industry shit together. And typically that will be worse for an industry than if the industry tries to take a thought leadership position in how it can de-risk and evolve. Kudos to them for doing this. to Jason's point, none of this stuff is particularly forward-thinking or innovative. It's just almost like codifying what we consider to be best practices currently.
Exactly.
The one place where I, because I got to disagree to be me, the one place where I disagree is I don't think, and I'm not saying that this organization is specifically supporting this, but it was mentioned in the article. I don't think that we want to have a world in which intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoids are not allowed into the food chain or the food supply chain. I think what we need to be thinking about is having non-intoxicating cannabinoids and intoxicating cannabinoids, just different rules. That's all. And whether those intoxicating cannabinoids come from hemp or they come from cannabis, they have a particular set of guidelines that ideally create some parity between the costs and the rules, no matter where that cannabinoid comes from. And so I think that this organization has a vested interest in seeing the sustainability of the hemp industry. And we know that with 2018's Farm Bill, it is ripe for revision. And when it does get revised, it could create some great opportunities, some great checks and balances, some safety measures, and really eliminate the need for governors on a state-by-state basis to be doing something to show that they're trying to take some sort of position on things because they don't have enough guidance from the federal government. We've seen that from New Jersey to California, and that's a byproduct of the federal government not revising that Farm Bill quickly enough to accommodate science and what we're seeing in markets.
Yeah, no, this is just like the thought process that gets me. It's like the regulated marijuana industry is fighting and saying, hey, let's shut down these free market entrepreneurs and pioneers because we want the tax. Like, tax us more. Fuck that. We just take our money. Like, what is going on? Everybody get their head out of their ass. Like, this is the problem. This is why this is what is the ultimate issue. And I think once everybody can kind of kumbaya around the fact that we're getting played, we allowed it to happen. So we need to be the ones to stop it, to turn it around, and to come up with something that makes sense. And I think there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of great ideas. We need to put them all together with the bureaucrats that actually want to change this thing. And we need to come up with a strategy that makes sense for everyone's pocket. Instead of allowing the states to rape us financially with all these tax schemes, as we're seeing, let's come up with something that makes sense. Let's standardize it. Let's get it done.
Well, I will say this is how you get things done, by having a trade organization like this to tell government, like, hey, before you regulate us, this is what we need done. Why don't you just adopt this and boom, boom, thank you, ma'am. And that's pretty much that. And that's how a lot of the times this thing goes. And so I would expect these rules to be adopted. These may get amended into the new Farm Bill and just end up being a staple and just call it a day on that. So I would not be surprised if that happened at all. And weed for the people.
Weed for the people.
All right, seeing as how none of you guys have anything left to say on that, I'm going to roll into my last story for you guys. Oh, man, you guys. Saman, Jenny, I can't wait to, and Yarrow, you got 3 parents up here. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this, because this is super, super interesting.
Yes, we all are child owners.
Because a court ruling, you guys, allows medical marijuana dispensaries near Arizona preschools. That's right. Medical marijuana dispensaries can operate in close proximity to preschools, the Arizona Court of Appeals ruled on Thursday, reasoning that the voter-approved law legalizing medical cannabis differentiated between schools and preschools. The ruling upholds a dispensary license that the Arizona Department of Health Services awarded back in 2016 for the Phoenix neighborhood of Otaki. The state agency, which regulates marijuana sales in the Grand Canyon state, reasoned that the law sets different rules for how close dispensaries can be to K through 12 schools and preschools. In a split opinion, the appellate court agreed, and in a quote says, because statutes mean what they say, we conclude the two phrases do not have the same meaning, and the two preschools at issue here are not a public or private school under the act, says Chief Judge David Gass, who wrote the two-page wrote for the two-judge majority. Excuse me. The ruling stems from a legal challenge brought by 3SL Family LLC, a company that applied for a dispensary registration certificate in Othwackee in 2016, and 3SL was one of several applicants vying for a single certificate in the area. But when the Department of Health Services and the dispensary and Health Services awarded the dispensary license to the competitor whose proposed location was adjacent to two preschools, 3SL sued, arguing that the location violated the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act 500-foot buffer zone requirement for schools. The AMMA, which voters approved in 2010, legalized medical marijuana in the state, but included provisions to keep dispensaries away from schools. The law prohibits dispensaries from operating within 500 feet of any public or private school, and however, the law's language left room for interpretation regarding preschools, which were mentioned separately in the statutes. The court's opinion emphasized the distinction between schools and preschools in Arizona law, which it said, in quotes, has long recognized schools are for school-age children and not for younger preschool-age children. In an additional quote, nothing about these terms or their uses suggest any uncertainty about their relationships or more than one rational interpretation of whether a preschool fits within the Act's concept of schools, end quote. Grass wrote that as well. And however, in a strong dissent, Judge Andrew Jacobs argued that the plain language of the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act makes it clear that preschools are schools. And in a quote says, it would make no sense for the same drafting hand to separate preschoolers, grade schoolers, and high schoolers from marijuana in one law, only to allow the placement of dispensaries next to preschoolers in another law while separating them from older school children. End quote. This decision could have far-reaching implications for Arizona's medical marijuana industry, and it potentially opens up more locations for dispensaries near preschools and child care facilities, which could lead to increased competition and accessibility for patients. However, it also raises concerns about the proximity of marijuana businesses to very young children. Jacobs raised that point, arguing that the restrictions on dispensary locations should be read together to protect all school children from exposure to marijuana, whether they are in preschool, elementary school, or high school. And in a quote says, separating school children from medical marijuana growing, sale, and use is one means the voters choose to protect marijuana growers, sellers, and users from prosecution, he wrote. But Grass and Judge Brian Furna said the interpretation of the state law would undermine the ability for ADHS to issue licenses and thus adversely affect the will of the voters. From 3SL Family LLC, the decision isn't the end of a nearly 8-year legal battle. Jesse Callahan, one of the company's attorneys, told the Arizona Mirror that the appeal to the Arizona Supreme Court will be forthcoming. And although Arizona's medical marijuana market thrived for a decade after voters created it, the passage in 2022 of legal adult use marijuana sales sparked a steep decline in the industry. And when adult use sales began back in January of 2021, there were nearly 300,000 qualifying patients in Arizona's original cannabis market, but there were fewer than 95,000 medical marijuana card holders in July of 2024. Well, I mean, that's a trend we've seen in all markets and whatnot when legalization happens. But man, this crazy that simple little loophole, man, so close to a preschool. Because it's not a school.
I got something to say about this.
I bet you do, because you're cannabis real estate expert over there, right?
As an owner of children, owner of multiple children, let's be really clear. Preschools are not schools. They are daycare centers. That's what they are. They are not like nobody. You don't ask your 3-year-old, what did you learn today in preschool? Like, okay, great. You learned to count a few bunny crackers and you didn't shit in your diaper. Like, great, huzzah! Like, so like we have this notion that anything that's related to our children, like we have preschool. Pre means before. Okay, so the actual word means before school. And if it's before school, that means it's not a school. And just because it's related to kids doesn't make it an educational institution. And I can't think, most people don't even remember everything from when they were 3 years old. So do you think some kid is going to grow up and decide to use cannabis because at 3, while they were getting picked up and put in their child seat, they looked over and saw a dispensary sign? Give me a break. And so the other thing is, you know, they don't have the same level of accreditation requirements that a typical education institution does. So I think we have a problem with the lack of brick and mortar and the number of brick and mortar storefronts in most regulated markets. That has been compounded by local control, which has created retail deserts from Long Island to Long Beach, literally. And the idea that a preschool is a school actually doesn't make any sense when you peel back the words and examine what it really is. And so I do think that there is a reasonable argument that from elementary school to high school, impressionable youngsters who will remember their experiences, that their decisions could be impacted by those experiences. We still don't have parity with the liquor store because nobody's worried about whether there's a 40-ouncer on a shelf in a 7-Eleven and the 7-Eleven is near an elementary school. So we don't have parity. But even if we don't have parity, the idea that a preschool is some highly sensitive site, it's really a flimsy argument. And I don't think when people start looping in this will of the voter, the will of the voter didn't think that a 3-year-old was going to start using cannabis because when they were picked up by their preschool, they somehow were able to see the sign for a storefront. That is bullshit.
It's just literally a great way for NIMBYs to have an argument that's not, I just don't want it, right? So, you know, I hate when those little asshole 3-year-olds try to sneak in the dispensary and grab a pre-roll. That's so unfortunate. It sucks. Happens all the time. Huge issue. But, I mean, I think that this is like so ridiculous because preschools and daycare centers are listed as sensitive use locations in California, right? Which sucks. And I think we need to kind of address this because now we're creating this situation where these predatory landlords can be like, oh, cannabis, cool. You can't go anywhere else. You know, you're almost full at this location. Let me charge you $15,000 a month for this shoe bucket. And also I need to have 3 months in advance. And also I need to see you pull your pants down, give me your firstborn child, and I might kick you out anyway. So I think that we need to really address that. I will do the last 3 for you. Oh, boy.
I mean, that's the best point Yarrow made was the liquor store thing. I mean, like that is there. I think it's actually a genius idea for Arizona because, you know, you can't take your kid into the dispensary with you to like buy your weed. So that's a really you know, that's an uncomfortable thing to have to like, you know, figure out a babysitter to just get your weed. If you don't have delivery in your area, if you do, I suggest get your weed delivered. But ultimately, you can take your kid into a liquor store, any liquor store. I just took my son to Bevmo with me, put him in the shopping cart, and was walking around the thing. You can't do that in a.
That's a new revenue stream, bro, for this preschool right there, you guys.
Yeah, the drop your kids off
drop your kid off while I go to the dispensary.
Seriously, right. This has affected a lot of business owners, me in particular, actually. So the first dispensary / marijuana infused products manufacturing license that I worked at in Denver in 2010, which was in 5 Points, if anyone's familiar, is on 24th and Champa. Shout out Greenhouse. This was like OG, one of the first dispensaries to open up in that area. And we got shut down in 2012. They came and served us paperwork, and they came and watched us shut down and made sure. And that was back when the MED only had, well, that was when it was the MMED, and they only had like 2 investigators for the whole entire state. So it was very early on, but it was like, you know, we were too close by like 10 feet to a Montessori school. And it's like, you know, is there a reason? Yeah, there's a reason. Was it a good reason? I think that could be argued. And it's not that kids aren't like, you know, totally, just like immune to anything in society, liquor or any kind of substance that they see people on or using. I mean, this is just part of life. It's like just keeping it out of their eyesight isn't enough, right? They're seeing it when they walk down the street around the corner. They're seeing it in a worse way. And so I just think that it's like the efforts are in the wrong place. They probably can come up with a more common sense way to deal with this, but Arizona, it's interesting. We'll see how it all works out. But I mean, is there a difference between being 1,000 feet away and 500 feet away? I don't think so.
500 feet. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, Saman. I think this is ridiculous. And I think, as somebody who we just had to lose a location that we had already started to build out because this fucking daycare was not on the ZEMAS map. And you couldn't see it. So unless you knew it was there, you didn't know it was there. And we'd already framed the building out and been paying rent for 6 fucking months. So now, Mr. Government Man, you did the map wrong. You approved this location because we passed pre-app. So now you owe me some bread. But, the applicant some bread. It's not me directly. But it's just a really frustrating situation. And I'm looking at one of those very imminent, like cute little green lanyards with the MAD badge stuff on it right now. And it takes me back to like, when are things going to make sense? We've been doing that wrong for so fucking long. Like,
well, and just speaking of making sense for a second, I think that when we look at radius rules in general, radius rules that are arbitrary don't make sense. Radius rules need to be calibrated to population density. And the less dense the population, the larger the radius could be. But the more dense the population, the shorter the radius can be. The radius that makes sense for a small rural town doesn't make sense for downtown Manhattan. And so these arbitrary distances, they sound good, but on a practical basis, and we see this and people are acknowledging it in the chat, Troy, other people, what it does is it creates real estate bubbles because it creates limited inventory for running these businesses. And anytime you limit the inventory, you increase the cost. And anytime you increase the cost, that has to be amortized over the products that are eventually sold. And anytime it's amortized over the products that are eventually sold, that increases the cost to the consumer/patient, which is not necessarily ever going to be a good thing. Because all you're doing is creating these massive real estate bubbles. And real estate bubbles aren't nearly as sustainable as just allowing these businesses to go out, set up shop, operate. Some will fail, some won't. Some will do a really good job. There will be M&A. There'll be consolidation. There'll be maturation. But as long as we have these real estate bubbles, those increased costs to operators get borne on the backs and the wallets of the end user. And I don't think anybody could argue that that's fair.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I got a text from one of our viewers that says that, THCA, Delta 8, all those types of shops, you have to be 300 feet from a school.
Wow.
Any type of smoke shop,
crazy.
head shop.
So less requirements for those places than others.
Lack of
that will sell your 3-year-old a pre-roll.
Oh boy.
I like Chris's comment. He's talking about 3 7-year-olds stacked on top of each other with a trench coat on, going into the shop to buy.
They'd be 21 at that point, right?
They would, because math.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh man, this is it's such a crazy loophole. Man. Not surprised though. Not surprised.
I'm going to start an organization called Righteous Radiuses for Realistic Reform. 4R. Let's get it down. Let's get it right.
Well, you know what I do think this will actually translate to over time is they'll be able to develop a study to show that that having this type of business within this type of doesn't harm the neighborhood. It doesn't create a public safety, public nuisance risk. And be able to actually show some real data to maybe lower these buffer zones across the country.
Well, you know what would help? If we as a community stopped being assholes and didn't throw cannabis trash out on the streets and shit like that. If I see packaging, I pick it up and throw it away. You're not helping our case. You're not making us look better to these people who just don't want it. And all they're going to do is scream the kids, the kids, the kids. It's not about the kids. It's about the fact that they don't want it. Because once upon a time, their mommy and daddy told them that cannabis is bad.
Fair enough. And on that, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big thank yous to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst over here for helping us keep the lights on, and thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do all of this. And thank you to Cloud Media Partners. And we have Sean in the building today. Thank you, Sean. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.